All right, what's up? This is going to be a new series that I like to call Melk and Cookies. That's just the name. And it's going to be like a monthly podcast. We have a bunch of guests come on the stream. And it's like a live podcast session. We'll talk about things that's relevant to them, relevant to the world. And it's really a lot of fun because it's like a live chat. It's interactive. So I hope you enjoy. And today's guest, or the first guest of this series, is none other than Dax. One of the engineers over at SST, making a lot of great things. Great team, great people. One of the voices on tech Twitter, and a dear friend of mine. So hopefully you all enjoy this. Let me know what you think. Check out all the links down below in the description, but I hope you enjoy. See ya.
Yeah, that's good.
That's good. Okay, now let me embed you, bro. Can you turn like a light on? Like, hold on. Let me show. I gotta. This is crazy. Look at this. So I'm gonna bring Dax in. Let's see. Are you gonna show up on stream? Nope. Okay, let's remove this. Oh, there you go. There you are. Just took some time, dude. What, bro? Turn on a fucking flashlight or something,
Dude,
please.
this looks amazing. I look. I can turn on that lamp behind me, but
Bro,
look, I go
you're
dark
like
mode. That's what
blended
I do.
into Excalibur right now.
Yeah, you can't even see my shirt, and my chair is black.
I
And my
know.
beard is black. You can
I could
only
literally-
see like the outline of.
I could literally
My
put you
cheeks.
anywhere on my stream right now, and it doesn't look like you're like being like embedded through a browser source or anything. Bro.
Here, let's see if this is a little bit better.
Oh god, that is funny. Let's see. Yeah, Owen, that looks exactly how Dax is right now. For real, the guy's just like in a lair. All right. Oh, okay. We've got some light.
Is this? I don't like it. Now my skin color is weird because my camera isn't adjusted for this. I'm gonna go turn it off.
Okay, fine. I guess you have to get like villain Dax, but that's
Just
okay.
let me sit.
Yeah.
Just let me sit in my cave.
Okay.
No, it's okay. So I have an explanation for this.
Please.
I moved last week, or like I guess it's been a while. I moved like a month ago,
Okay.
and I haven't like reset up that lamp and like automation with the rest of my stuff. So it's been off. That's my explanation.
Okay.
So-
Well, I mean, you did move literally like one house down, so it's not like you moved. It's not like you actually didn't move, dude. Like, don't say you moved. You just went a couple steps to like the left, and that was it.
You know what's funny? This room that I'm in,
Yeah.
it's set up. It's an identical room. The two houses are basically the same. This one is a little bit bigger in different areas and has a bigger backyard, but
Yeah.
the main house is the same. So I like moved and I took down all my shit and I put it back up in the same place. And I went and I had a call with my coworkers and they're like,
Nothing
"You
changed.
moved? Like, aren't you in the exact same house?"
Let me quickly ask chat. Can you guys all hear Dax? Like everything's coming through. Like, can we just like get all that out of the way? Is he loud enough? Is he obnoxious enough? I can't control the second dial, but I can control the volume. And yeah, we're good. Okay, cool.
All right. So my question is, how come I can't see you in ping?
Okay.
Is
Yeah.
that-
So I know you can't see me in pink, which sucks. Let me tell you why. I updated my OBS to version 30, and for some reason, OBS version 30 doesn't have the virtual camera. So I can't like virtually show the camera to you and display it. So unfortunately, I have to like just be soothed by my voice.
What OS are you on?
Ubuntu.
Wait, actually?
Yeah,
You stream
yeah.
on Linux?
Yeah, I don't use anything but Linux. Like it's only been
me
Linux.
too.
Yeah, hell yeah.
So there's a different build of OBS that this guy makes, Titan or whatever, and that has like all the shit built in, virtual camera, browser source, all of that.
Okay.
That's what I use.
I'm not gonna do that now. I probably won't even like bother changing it because, dude, setting up OBS was an absolute nightmare. Have you ever set up dual stream to YouTube on OBS?
Oh yeah, with
Bro,
that plugin.
that fucking plugin on Ubuntu, bro. I actually couldn't do it. I paid someone in my Discord to figure it out for me, bro.
Wait, isn't it like a Chinese plugin? Like,
Yeah,
don't like a bunch
yeah.
of like Chinese characters
Yep,
show up and stuff? Yeah,
exactly.
It's a nightmare.
Yeah, multi RTMP. It is. It's like you have to transit everything. Like you basically have to like browse through all the issues, figure out what's going on. Like it sucks. But yeah.
It's just not worth it. Just don't stream to YouTube.
Yeah, don't shoot my. I mean, fuck it, whatever. But, dude, thanks for coming on. I know this is kind of like a random spur of the moment. I think I asked you like a couple days ago if you if you could be on the stream. So I appreciate that. I've always wanted to like kind of pick your brain a little bit, and I have like offline, but I think it'd be fun to bring it to the open and have people just kind of, you know, pop in, ask them questions, all that.
Yeah. Yeah, sounds good. I'm excited.
Yeah. I didn't tell you this, but originally I was supposed to have Ryan Carniato on this stream. He was supposed to, like, instead of you, it was supposed to be him.
Are you telling me I'm the second choice? Yeah, so I'm here to like try to explain solid, but like not as well as he would have.
Bro, I was so stoked. I'm like, oh, like this is actually gonna be fun. Like Ryan, like I've never actually got a chance to talk to him. We know of each other. Like we popped in here and there, and you know, just like I've been tired of React for so long, and like solid just looks so like appealing and well designed and has good things about it. But then something came up in his personal life, so he's like, we can reschedule.
I'm just laughing at your notes.
Oh yeah, you like them?
You wrote all this stuff for Ryan, and then you end it with,
we got Dax.
Okay, we got Dax. Just one bullet point.
I know we
Nice.
we got Dax. That's it. Yeah, and so I was scrambling. Like, I don't even know what we're gonna talk about, bro. Look at this. Look at this effort. I put together a tier list of cloud providers. But
Oh
I'm like,
man.
I'm like,
Dude, Salesforce is in there?
yeah, Salesforce is in here.
Is Cloudflare not even in there?
I was gonna put Cloudflare. I didn't get to it. I got busy.
Okay.
But I'm like, dude, like, is this what what do I talk to Dax about? Like, do I talk about his dog, or like, do we do a tier list with cloud providers? It's one or the other. So I landed on this one.
Okay. Yeah, I'm down.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know about half this shit, but so.
Neither, we might even do this, man. Like, I was just, it
Dude,
was
is
also.
that Alibaba Cloud?
Yeah,
Are
that's
you serious?
Yeah.
That's really funny.
Yeah, I got Alibaba Cloud. I got IBM Cloud. This is Netlify, Fly.io, Vercel, Coolify. So I got all of this in here. So we're cooking. It's also like not a one-to-one at all, because you have like the left side, like up until maybe IBM, you have like these full-on cloud providers like AWS, Azure, whatever, and then you have like the much smaller, like maybe just for deployment services, and I didn't know how to bridge them, so I just put them all in one list. Let me grab Cloudflare real quick. But I actually don't want to start with that. I want to start with something else. And this is something I was thinking about when I was thinking like, what am I gonna ask you? Like what what can I possibly ask you? But fuck, let's just kind of get going. One thing I think you and I, okay, so there's a tweet that you put out. This one. I'm grateful that we get to work closely with some of the amazing teams in the space. Astra, Fred plus team making everything fun. Remix, Ryan has such a long-term vision. Next.js, solid. Other Ryan is an encyclopedia, and the team is ambitious yet practical. You know, I want to talk to you about Next.js and Vercel.
Great, starting off hot.
Yeah. Oh, we got 5 tier 1s from Snow the
Look
Parrot.
at that.
Appreciate that. All of this will not be given to Dax at all. Like, this is just me taking Dax's time. So, yeah, bro. I want to talk about Next and Vercel.
Yeah.
I want to gain your opinion on it, because I think, you know, memes aside, like, you're very knowledgeable in this space. I think you're one of the people that like has done the most deep dive into like how serverless works outside of Vercel using Lambda, whatever. So tell me like your raw thoughts on Vercel. What do you think of the company? What do you think what do you think they do? How do you think they handle it? Just give me the rant.
Yeah, so fundamentally, Vercel is an idea that is interesting and positioned pretty differently than a lot of other stuff. So there's a lot of interesting stuff there. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to be a middleman cloud. So there's all these basically hyperscalers, like the ones that you have listed there, that build, operate these giant data centers, constantly scale those, constantly drive costs down, like do that work. Very capital intensive. You're not going to start a competitor to AWS. It's not going to happen, right?
Right.
So their idea was, can we build something on top of this stuff that is slimmed down and it still feels like a cloud, something that you like sign up for, and it's like a hosted service, And can we provide enough value on top that people are willing to pay us more than what the underlying infrastructure would cost if you use it directly? So,
and using directly,
I think their
using directly, is it safe to assume there's probably two servers that come to mind? And like, again, I'm not the most Vercel heavy. There's lots of cool features that Vercel offers that's not like binded to Next. But the ones I'm talking about would be like AWS Lambda, right?
Yeah.
I think, what's it called on AWS? I think AWS CI/CD or AWS pipelines, right? For continuous deployment. And then, yeah, those are the two major ones. Not even talking their domain space or anything like that, or like their DB implementation. But is that what you mean by like using the competitor directly?
Yeah, so there's a bunch of infrastructure that Vercel is built on top of. Notably, they built on top of AWS Lambda, and this is what makes them a little bit more unique than other companies, right? So if you there's a lot of middleman type companies out there. Render's another one.
Yep.
But the difference between Render and some of these and Vercel and some of these other companies is they are buying like big amounts of compute from AWS. So they might like buy EC2 instances. They might buy like just raw compute. And they're hoping that they can keep that compute busy enough that it pays for itself and turns them a profit. This is really hard. This is like a really hard thing to do because they need to make sure that if one of their customers 10x is in traffic, they can handle that. So they kind of have to be pre-provisioned for that. So as a middleman, when you have stateful infrastructure you're building on top of, that kind of sucks because it costs you a lot of money. And I don't believe that that's really viable. I think most of the middleman companies you see like that have understood that and they're moving to their own infrastructure now.
You mean
but
own
what's
infrastructure? Like, I'm gonna keep interrupting because I've genuinely always found this interesting. And I know like I've dropped some tidbits in like Discord DMs. But do you mean like when you say own infrastructure, do you mean like creating from scratch their own like deployment process or their own like equivalent
own data centers, own hardware? They're getting in the game of managing hardware. Yeah.
Okay.
And there's a spectrum to this. They're not like going out there buying land and building a data center. They're leasing really high-end data center space from companies like Equinix. There's a bunch of like places where you can like co-locate stuff. And so they'll buy really high-end machines. They'll kind of operate in this way. And it's a lot cheaper for them to be this thing if they're not building on top of AWS. So I fundamentally don't believe that you can really build something that big being a middleman on top of AWS, except Vercel did something different. Most of their compute runs on AWS Lambda, and this makes them very different than everyone else because they're not pre-provisioning stuff, right? If they have 0 customers, they have $0 in bills. If one of their customers blows up, AWS Lambda will scale up instantly and handle that. So that's what's unique and insightful about their model.
Yeah, true. And hindsight, it's like, okay, obvious, but that's kind of just that's just how serverless works. Like that's one of the things that you don't have to work. Like that's the serverless part in the term serverless, right? Like it doesn't mean like it's on this new innovative infrastructure. It still runs in a server. It just, we're not like, the user isn't responsible for managing like the scaling or other stuff that comes with a typical server-based architecture.
Yep, exactly. And I think the other important part is your costs are usage based. So for a company like Vercel, if all of their bills are usage based, that means they're not paying unless they're making money, which makes this whole juggling act of like, how do I provision enough and like to make sure that my customers can access it, and how do I have enough customers to like use that capacity? They're not worried about that. They don't have to play that game at all like everyone else does. And I think that is, from a business perspective, this is nothing to do with the end user, purely from them as like a business. That's why their approach is interesting. But the question still remains, given they charge like a 5x 10x margin roughly on the compute on Lambda, the bandwidth across their various other services, etc. That's what's that's the entire question. Like, can you deliver enough value so that companies at scale are still like, yeah, our bills are growing bigger, but there's so much value in the development process of Vercel, the way we use it, that it's worth that cost because it makes our team more productive and removes stuff that we don't have to worry about.
Yeah, so that's kind of, so it's interesting. When I first got introduced, and by the way, Theo's here. A big shout out to Theo. I knew when I said Vercel on the stream title, or like summon Vercel. If you say Vercel three times fast, Theo shows up. But like when I first got introduced to Vercel, I was pretty early, and like it being introduced to infrastructure as code or infra. Like this was like when I first joined Twitch, and when I was getting more into that space. When I used Vercel, like I didn't even have the right idea of what serverless was, or like the alternative, right? So to me, it was very mystical. And I think one thing that sold me right away was like the convenience factor, right? Literally having their CLI deploy code for you in quite literally like a couple clicks, a couple commands, a couple flags was extremely attractive, right? I was like, this is awesome. Like I have something running, I could visit it, the domain is there. It's really nice. But then through work and through other like just I don't know curiosity, I went into AWS. I just learn more about it, lambdas, how they work, etc. Realized that Vercel is using lambdas under the hood for this kind of for running the code. And that mystic, that like convenience kind of faded away because I knew like I built up enough knowledge that I could just deploy what I want. Using CDK or Terraform, right? Like it doesn't really matter what you use as like that infrastructure code layer, but I was able to deploy the exact same thing relatively at the same speed, but not have that 5x markup or any sort of markup, right? I'm paying what AWS will charge me. And for serverless, it's like 0 if I get no traffic essentially, right? So that was very interesting. So I think a question I have for you, I don't know, not for you, but like just for holistically for Vercel is like, are they banking on that convenience factor as well? Or are they banking on the fact that there's so much to offer in like the Vercel ecosystem that like you might as well pay the markup because you're not only getting like serverless deployments, but you're getting all this extra stuff. Like I see in chat, like streaming and all this other stuff, right?
Yeah. So I think if you look at a lot of their newer features, you can see that it's more around the process of developing a product, the process of committing code and collaborating on it and doing deployments, not literally what's running at runtime.
Yeah.
And I think this makes a lot of sense because if you think about a company that starts on Vercel and they start to get big bills and they're considering moving off of it, what's going to keep them there? What's going to keep them there is we love the workflow. Like our team is heavily using all of these different like features that really have nothing to do with the way it's deployed. So they're putting a lot more effort in there, and I think I'm seeing a lot more features there. And I think that it makes sense that they're focusing there. Like, is that a bet that I'm going to make? Personally, no. I think for the thing that people underestimate about dev tools is like you need a lot of customers to have like $1 billion company. You need to have like some of the biggest companies out there paying you and using your stuff. And the way those companies operate, it is very, very, very hard to like authorize another vendor. So if you look at like for us, because we see more companies in that category because we help people deploy into their own infrastructure. These are companies that would have been paying Vercel like a $200,000-$300,000 a year type of thing.
I see.
So it's a price, but two, it's like these companies are just different. Like they're not going to just use one vendor just for this thing. There's a company that we've been talking to where small team inside a larger company, they built their whole prototype, spell kit, did it all on Vercel, banking that their infrastructure and security team would get it approved and get the deal done.
Yeah.
But they went back and forth and they couldn't get it done. So now they're scrambling to like bring it back to their existing infrastructure. So that's why that's like it's not a bet that I would personally want to make. But there's like validity to it.
I mean, I think that argument kind of, okay, I'm going to use it very loosely, but it's almost like being vendor locked, right? Like you are banking on Vercel, and if you're not going with Vercel, then you are in this scrambling notion where you have to rewrite your code or rewrite your architecture, rethink your architecture probably to go with something that's not Vercel, right? So it's very vendor locked. I know Vercel has had that label before of being a vendor lock. That even makes sense. But isn't that argument valid for all providers, right? Like, isn't that's not just a Vercel thing?
Yeah. So I'm actually not making the vendor lock argument. I'm actually saying that I generally fall on the other side. I actually think that if my honest opinion is people that bring up vendor lock just have something they want to do and they're arguing against this other thing by bringing up this term vendor lock.
True.
The reality is anything you build depends on stuff, and there's always going to be friction if you need to move off of that stuff. it is very unlike the case I brought up where they're moving. It's not a vendor lock situation. And my point more is that they thought they could use it, but they couldn't. And that's like just representative of what happens at bigger companies.
Yep. Yep.
It's very unlikely you're going to move clouds. If you're a big successful company, like there's very little, people always make up the situation of like, oh, like they're going to jack up prices and screw you over. That like used to happen like pre-cloud era. Like if you think about the Oracle type of approach.
Yep.
Since like cloud era started, like this is not really a thing that happens. Like if you can find cases where someone got fucked over because a vendor like jacked up their prices, it's just not a thing really that happens. I'm sure maybe you can find some cases, but like optimizing to move your shit off of AWS onto something else, or like that's the case you're optimizing for, there's trade-offs with that, and it's like a dumb optimization to make because it's unlikely to happen. So I'm okay with vendor lock. Be smart about who you pick. You be sure they have capabilities to handle everything that you're going to eventually run into. Be sure that they're aligned with the direction you're going in. So you never have conflict with them. But once you pick them, just buy into what they do and like do everything that they suggest, because it's going to be nice alignment for you.
The issue with cloud providers, and like I'm going to talk on AWS, is you kind of are at their mercy of also like the whole, like I agree with you on the whole like vendor locking thing. Like it's not even vendor locking. Like you're kind of subscribing to what you have to do to use their services, right? So if you use AWS, you're quote unquote vendor locked to AWS. And migrating is like, depending on the scale of your company, like for example, Twitch will never ever, for multiple reasons, but let's say in a universe, Twitch was not owned by Amazon, right? But Twitch used all its info on AWS. Due to the sheer size and I guess coupling, there is not a reality where Twitch moves off of AWS. No matter what AWS chooses to release, change, whatever, that shift is almost like we're talking a whole new product. That's how big of the scope of migration would be if you have to move to GCP or something else, right? It's just like not feasible at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I had another really good question on the whole vendor locking thing. I guess one other question is, you said like, you know, it's very rare to see companies move from one cloud provider to the other. It's funny you say that because your company, SST, recently did something where you didn't necessarily move away from AWS, at least as far as I know, but you moved away from the framework that AWS offers to communicate with those services and provision those services, which is CDK. Yeah. And can you like, I want to get into that detail maybe further down the line, but can you just kind of talk about like the scope of work that it is required for a company like SST to make that shift?
Yeah. So that shift is because it's like a really weird scenario, because it's not like a product, like it's not like a hosted service or anything that we moved over. It is a framework / library that we had a big dependency on an AWS tool. Right. We moved away from it. So that results in a lot of work for us, basically from zero. We're basically started from scratch, new code base, new language, everything was different. And you know, it results in work for our users to migrate, and we're still figuring out that process. But I think this is reflective of areas that big cloud providers are good at versus where they're bad at. Big cloud providers are really good at stuff like, you need to store files. We're going to make this cheaper and cheaper and cheaper every year because we're going to have more capital. We're going to make bigger purchases of our hard drives. We're going to find efficiencies. Like, we're going to get you the absolute lowest price anyone on the planet can possibly give you, because no one's as big as us. That's what someone like AWS is very good at. They're extremely bad at being like, here's what your day-to-day process using the service is going to feel like. Here's what the day-to-day process for developer, here's what they're going to have to know. Here's like the complexity they're going to have to be exposed to. They're very bad at, which makes sense, because like that's a completely different random thing, right? The last mile developer experience. So we built on top of a tool that was like kind of in that direction, and we were like improving it as much as we could. Ultimately, we hit limits with that, so we had to kind of eject and build on better foundations.
But you're still on AWS, right?
So our hosted product, we built SST, which is a framework that helps you build applications.
Yep.
We have applications built with SST that are currently deployed to AWS. We likely will always, at least for a while, that'll be the case. So we're experimenting with doing some of that stuff in Cloudflare, because there's like meaningful cost differences for us, but yeah, there's no like burning desire to like move our stuff entirely off of it.
Okay, yeah, because one of the huge things, correct me if I'm wrong, SST offers that like serverless deployment. Like you can deploy your code on a serverless function, right? Or serverless based architecture. And SST provides like constructs that allow the user to kind of deploy that relatively easily, right?
Yeah.
And I know that, again, like we talked about Vercel, it's using AWS Lambda directly. And as far as I know, AWS is kind of the first one to do that, to show this like serverless type architecture. But I know there's other cloud providers like the big three, like Azure, that also has like an equivalent. Is that something SST would ever consider? And thank you. We just got 20 gifted subs.
Whoa, look at that.
Yeah, thank you for whoever, anonymous gifter, 20 T1s. Thank you, Dylan, also for the T1. Yeah, appreciate whoever anonymous is. Must be, it's either Adam or Frank or Jay. Probably Jay. That just dropped the 20 T1s.
No one on our team has money. It probably is Adam if it's anyone.
True. But yeah, thank you. Again, Dax is going to get nothing. So he's just kind of looking at the sideline and seeing us kind of party on. He's like, okay, cool. Yep. Let me answer this. It's an infrastructure question for you guys.
What were we saying? You were saying that, oh yes, okay, the serverless stuff. So yeah, so with our new shift with SST Ion, we can deploy to all kinds of stuff. Like it's not just to AWS, we can deploy to Azure, Google, Cloudflare, anything.
Yeah.
The reason we're not super excited about Azure or Google Cloud, so we've always focused on serverless stuff. It's not all we've done. We've done container stuff. We'll continue to do that, especially with Ion. We're broadening things a lot to deploy like kind of anything anywhere. But for serverless stuff, you kind of need a few components. Like functions are just one thing, like a Lambda function. It's your form of compute. You need some kind of event bus. You need queues, and you need like some kind of storage that ideally is also pretty serverless. And the combination of those things only exists nicely in two places, in my opinion, in AWS and in Cloudflare. They're kind of the only two companies that like thought ground up, if you start from this model, like what services and design patterns you need, and they like built towards that. Everyone else like kind of has serverless-ish stuff, and you can do that, but it's not like on AWS or Cloudflare where you can have like 100, you can have an app that literally does not exist unless it's processing a request.
Interesting. I have very little experience with Cloudflare, but I only hear good things about it. Might be something to explore. But like for me, like I'll be honest, like because I know AWS to the extent I know it, like I'm super comfortable with AWS. There's nothing I can't do. There's nothing like that I want to do that I can't do due to my lack of knowledge in AWS at this point, right? So it's hard for me to be like, well, now should I spend my weekend like learning Cloudflare and like learning all of this? Like it's hard for me to like personally make that justification. Same way I am with like frameworks. Like I still use React, even though I hate what React is turned into. I absolutely hate everything that React has done past version 18. It's just not like I am not the right customer for that. Okay, like the React server components, server-side rendering, which is like maybe like more of a Next influence, and whatever they're introducing in React 19, I'm just like, bro, no. I just want to render elements in a DOM, connect it to my separate backend, and like go on with my life, right? So, but the thing is, like, I still use React for that level, and it's hard for me to find justification to go to another framework. This is hence why I want to talk to someone like Ryan Carniato, to gain that like dump of knowledge to help me make that decision and that like investment. But like, what's your kind of advice and take on people not really having like a direct problem, but having this like strange curiosity to explore other providers?
Yeah, well, okay, so I think there's a few things there, and I think you described something that I think is really important, which is you have this knowledge now and it's permanent, right? Like you're not going to forget it. You're like, if anytime you need to do anything new, now that you know it, the cost for you is zero, right? You probably paid some upfront cost to learn it, but it's not an ongoing cost, right? It's not like every day you're sitting there monitoring servers or something. Like you just know it's like a one-time thing. So I think people should grab these one-time things. Like a lot of people avoid learning them because they think it's like, oh, I don't want to like have to worry about that stuff, but you're not constantly worrying about it. Like once you know it, it's yours and everything. So a big part of SST is like making that process a little bit easier. Our goal isn't to like prevent you from knowing this stuff. Our goal is to give you a nice on-ramp to eventually become an expert at using these infrastructure tools directly. Because yeah, once you know them, like you can do anything. You're like never going to run into any kind of limits. And the reality is yeah, AWS capability is outrageous. Like you can do so much, anything from
literally everything.
Yeah, literally anything. Like anything from like crazy high scale data processing to now the LLM stuff. Like they're always going to have something. It's going to be shitty and annoying, but like once you know how to use it, like it's not really going to bother you too much. So I definitely see why you're like, I'm not super interested, or like I don't have like much motivation to learn other stuff. It's just why like I'm not going and diving into Azure, even though I'm like in the infrastructure space. But some things eventually are like enough of a paradigm shift where it's not incrementally different, it's like meaningfully different. And to me, Cloudflare definitely clears that bar. I don't think it's very obvious yet, and I think a lot of the work that I'm trying to do is to make it a lot more obvious why it is very compelling. I think fundamentally the way I think about it is AWS built a bunch of stuff and then discovered serverless, and then now they're like kind of in this mode where they're building stuff in that way. Whereas Cloudflare like doesn't have any of that history, and from the beginning they just committed to this idea, and the results are a lot simpler, a lot more elegant. Just beautiful design patterns across the board, and they enable like a lot of new things you couldn't do on AWS that we actually run into. But again, it's not well understood yet, and we're hoping that over the next year or so we can make that a lot more obvious.
So okay, damn, there's a lot of questions. So you said something interesting, and I kind of want to challenge you on this. So you said like SST was built as this like on ramp, right, to get your users to basically discover the underlying infra around it. But like from a business perspective, don't you think that's counterintuitive? Like, don't you think you're gonna harm the business of SST if like you show them that like, oh, this is so fun, this is so cool, and then they have the curiosity, like want more, and then they explore the underlying tech. Let's say you're heavily coupled on AWS at that time, and so that user would then go to AWS, look at everything kind of behind under the scope or under the hood, because again, SST is open source, so they can kind of look at these things, and then they're like, okay, well now I have this knowledge, why would I go back to SST?
So there's the whole thing here is, and with every business and I think every struggle in life, it's just the balance between the long term and the short term. So in the short term, there's some fear like, oh no, if people like learn this, then they're gonna, have no need for SST. But the long term reality is with any tool, there's a risk of people outgrowing it. For us, the reason we're really like transparent about you being able to dive into lower levels is because we don't want you to be limited, where if there's eventually something that you're going to want to do that SST doesn't support directly, if we don't give you access to that lower stuff and give you that power, you're just going to eventually eject out of us. So like the goal for us is you can kind of stick with this stuff forever. And if you look at our users, like a bunch of them, someone the other day posted like they had to go back to using CDK directly because they were like shipping a CDK contract for something unrelated. And they were like, what the fuck? Like, this is so much worse. Like, how am I, like, I'm never going to do this directly again. So we always get asked the question of like, oh, why not just use the underlying stuff directly? It's like, yeah, you could, but I know the moment people start using our stuff, like we rarely see people go in that direction. We see people avoiding using our stuff in the first place because they want to like stick to the lower level stuff, which is fine. But like we focus on a market that just does not use anything at all, and we're like creating a bridge to them. So it's all new. It's all net new people. Of course, we have people moving from existing AWS stuff. That's kind of where we started. But now our users are people that like never really looked at AWS before, and they tend to stick with us forever because you can't really outgrow us since you have access to all the infrastructure directly.
Nice. Yeah. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. So I guess you guys don't see lots of like churn, right? Like if you're not really like, you probably see some churn, like people like use it and then
of course
go, yeah. So but the
I'm saying like it's not the churn doesn't happen when they've been using us for like a year and they're like have a big application built around it, and now they're like, we don't need it anymore, because there's no cost to it. Like if it's not working for you, that's one thing, but getting rid of it doesn't really simplify or like reduce anything at that point.
Yeah, it's interesting because like I was talking on a stream like on Tuesday, I think, and I was like we're briefly talking about AWS Lambdas, and AJ, who's in chat right now, like I dubbed you and him as like two people who I think like really explored and continue to explore.
AJ doesn't know anything about Lambda.
Yeah. Okay. There you go.
He's pretty clueless when it comes to that stuff. No, I'm just kidding. Whenever I have questions about Lambda, I go ask AJ.
Yeah. So
What happens once a week?
He's a AJ is a fraud. He's actually a huge server based like fan. Shill. But yeah, you two are always like top of mind for like people who actually like explore what's happening behind the scenes, like push the limits of AWS Lambda. I want to ask like why, you know, like why the investment into exploring Lambda as opposed to like, I know some people memeing this in chat, but like why not like also explore what server-based architecture offers and like maybe like different styles of deployment where you maybe just have a server and you deploy your code code like old school style.
The answer, people aren't going to like it. The answer is we already did that and we're done with it. Like we're older than you guys. Like we're all like that's the way I was deploying my whole career. I have managed big Kubernetes deployments. I still use stateful stuff when it makes sense.
Yeah.
To me, it's just a continuation of what's always happened. The size of compute you could purchase has shrunk to smaller and smaller and smaller units over time. You first had to buy a physical server. I mean, before they had to buy mainframes, and you could buy individual servers, and you could buy VMs on a server. Then you could buy just the containers in the VMs on the server. And now you can buy just like per millisecond cost compute. There's like no difference. It's just the same spectrum. And our jobs tend to be like exploring what's at the edge. And what's at the edge right now is the smallest form of compute you can buy, which was Lambda, and I think now it's Cloudflare Worker, which is why I'm interested in that. But we use all kinds of stuff. Like I think for us, it's to really understand what architectures work well in this. What do you have to give up to use this? What do you get as a benefit? And we advise people on how to do that. And the reality is, what doesn't show up is this stuff is extremely well adopted. Like there are so many companies, real companies that make money that build entirely this way, and they have no issues and they build all kinds of stuff. So yeah, like it's like, I think a lot of people talk to me like, oh, like you don't know about containers, like you don't know how to like run a server, like motherfucker, like what do you think I've been doing for the last decade?
Yeah.
I got here as a result of that.
Interesting. Yeah, because all my deployments for all my kind of hobby apps, even some that have users, like I don't have like crazy amounts of users, but I think on a 24-hour basis, we can check my plausible. I think I get around like 600, right, daily active users across the board on two apps I built, and both of those are deployed. Like I just containerize them and put them on a Hetzner server, right? And I use Coolify as. By the way, do you know Coolify? Have you like explored a little bit?
Yeah, it's Kubernetes for babies. Yeah.
Yeah. Dude. Fuck. I hate the fact that it's so true. All right.
That doesn't mean it's bad.
I know. Shut up. I know it doesn't mean it's bad. Okay. Like
I know it's great for you.
Bro, please. I'm wearing a black t-shirt like you, so I know how to code. I promise. And I'm wearing a necklace. God damn, that actually derailed. Like I'm like, I don't even know.
Hang on. Speaking of necklace, I gotta do his little side thing here. I got on my podcast today, record without him, and his camera was off, and I was like, what the fuck? Then he turns it on, and he's wearing a chain, and dude, it was a joke. And like I died when I saw it, but like it just does not look good on him. Like I don't know what it is. Like you can like, I feel like you can see his personality not matching the chain, and it's just like,
dude.
Anyway,
yeah, Adam is like, he's the kind of dude that wear like I don't know, like just a sleeveless shirt and like shorts and flip flops. You know, like that's like how I see his style. You know, just like no jewelry, just like slap some shit on. Like, hey, what are we doing now, guys? You know, like.
Yeah. I remember he posted once, he was like super excited about some clothing brand, and he posted it, and I was like, this is the fucking whitest shit I've ever seen. Like the shirts were named like Dandy McGee, and it was just like the most regular looking shit I've ever seen in my life. And he was for some reason like
so hyped.
I was so happy I finally found like a clothing brand that
the logo is like a frisbee.
Like, what the hell is this?
The logo is just like a frisbee being thrown or something. The most whitest activity ever. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Anyway.
yes, it's Kubernetes for babies. I actually have a funny story that I'm gonna tell you like after that because you brought up Kubernetes. So I use Coolify, and I think it's super dope. I've talked to like the one guy who was deploying, like making it, Andreas, like smart guy, and like yeah, I've never had any problems with any of the apps I've deployed with that method, right? And again, it kind of goes back to like when would I use like why and when would I use serverless, right? Is there like
No, probably never. Like I still have a server that I manage and I deploy stuff on. And like I have like little things that are running there, personal stuff. It just doesn't make sense to run in serverless. It needs some of the apps need certain things that you can't do on serverless. So ultimately it's like certain patterns click for certain people. Like if you like the container pattern, it makes sense. Like I'm really never trying to, and this is a thing that I like struggle to get across. I'm rarely trying to convince someone to do something different. I'm just trying to do stuff the way I want to do it without people commenting on it, you know?
You're not doing a good job of it at all. You're doing such a bad job of that, bro. Like, I'm telling you, I don't even think I don't believe you. I just don't believe you. Like, you're so like,
I don't care what you do. I literally do not care what everyone else does. Just let me do things how I want to do without making dumbass comments about it. That's literally all I care about.
Bro,
but people make the dumbass comments, so I have to like reply to them and explain to them why it's wrong. Then people interpret that as, well, you're trying to convince me to change my shit. Like, I don't give a shit about who you are or what you're doing. Like, I don't care.
That's a tweet lives like, hey, just talk to this random noob who uses Kubernetes for babies. Gonna probably like just destroy him and like talk about why you need to migrate everything.
No, I mean, I think Coolify is great. I think when you rent like dedicated hardware like that, you can pack so much on there. And historically, the only way to really do that is with something like Kubernetes or like Nomad or one of those options. So it's cool to see something like Coolify that are like helping bring that self-hosting stuff in a simplified way. I think people expect me to like be against it or hate it, but like the weird thing with us is we don't really care. Like as SST as a team, like we actually don't care about much. We just care about what our users want to do, and we do a lot of serverless stuff because that's where a lot of our users they have workloads that make sense there and they're demanding that. We have users that have container stuff, and we built container stuff for that reason, and we'll continue to do so. Do you think I like Next.js? I fucking hate Next.js.
Yeah.
But why do I know so much about it? Why do I know like an obscene amount of Next.js? It's because of our users. They want to use it and they like using it, so we got to help them. So it's like, yeah, like we're kind of everywhere for that reason.
So you're not at the mercy of your users, but you have to basically build something that they want, right? Otherwise you're not going to use it. Like in a weird way to say that, right? Like if you're going to be like, you know what, I hate Next.js, so I'm just not going to support anything to it, right? And like, sure, maybe like some companies are going to do that, like, you know, just fuck Next.js, meh. But like you're missing out on such a huge scope of the market if you do something like that, right? If you let your emotions kind of decide on what your users want versus what they actually want.
Yeah, I have no morals. I just want to make money. Like I'm just gonna go wherever the money, the money is. So yeah, I'll help you deploy anything. Like I don't give a shit. Like
as long as you pay me, I got you.
Yeah, yeah. The Next.js one's funny because they're just so big and they're massive. And yeah, like I don't use it. Like our team doesn't use it. We've tried and it's just like not our thing. Like it's just like there's so much about it that we just hate on like a core level. And so yeah, it is a weird conflict because like we do help a lot of people deploy Next.js applications. That's why a lot of people come to us. So it's this funny thing where we're like always insulting them, but then we're also like deeply caring about people's Next.js deployments, and it's just like a weird position to be in.
Yeah, so I'm not a big fan of Vercel, and that's probably saying it in like a very friendly way. And anytime there's any opportunity, like if there's a conflict or maybe they made a decision that, you know, isn't the best decision from like, you know, my standpoint, I can always bank on you like tagging Guillermo or whoever on the Vercel team. Be like, you guys are fucking idiots. Here's a 9-page like thesis on why you are wrong, and I'm gonna explain detail by detail why it is. I'm just like, all right, like I know what I'm gonna do for the next like 20 minutes. Grab my popcorn and like let's dive into this shit.
Yeah, you know what's wild about all of that is I only indulge myself 10% of the time, I would say. 90% of the time I'm just like, I'm gonna skip this one. So
Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot more that could be happening. Yeah, it's funny. My thing with them is, okay, I'll explain. I've actually never talked about this. Uh, there's a few levels to this. One, I think it's fun to fuck with them. I think they're very easy to fuck with. I think they try so hard to be so fucking serious, and it's just like so easy to make fun of a lot of the stuff that they do. So I love doing that. So I love poking fun at that. Two, I never really had this negative of a relationship with them until a few things happened. So we started supporting Next.js through SST. There was so much, like I said, we actually refused it for so long. Like people, like users have been asking us to help them do this for so long. We just kept saying, no, not interested, not interested, not interested. But just got to a certain point where we're like, let's just spin up an open source project. There's so many people that want to do this. There's so many fragmented attempts at doing this. Spin this up. We didn't even think about anything. We didn't think about much. We were just like, okay, we're going to call it Open Next. It wasn't intentional. We just came up with a random ass name. And we were in the process of spinning this up. And someone like posted about it on Twitter before we were really ready to like go public about it. And like that like really pissed off the Vercel team. Like they were like demanding that we change the name of it. And the one thing with me is like, if you start making demands of me, like fuck you. Like I don't care what it is. Like who the fuck do you think you are to ask? I don't care how much of a big shot you think you are. Like asking someone to go change their name because like it's in conflict with some branding goals you have. Like that's like so wildly like you have like no concept of reality. Like I don't care who you are. So that like kind of rubbed me the wrong way, whatever. Then they just started like posting all this weird stuff. Like at the end of the day, Open Next we barely are involved with it. It's a project full of, at this point, fully volunteers. They put so much effort into making that thing work, man. Like every release there's something breaking. They put up so many integration tests. They test all these little details. They put so much work in it. And why? Because they love Next so much that they want to like deploy it wherever they are stuck deploying to, right? They can't use Vercel. They love Next.js so much. They're going to put in all this work to do this. And it's a crazy community effort. And it's awesome. And then like you'll see posts like deep in Reddit, like people will send us where like Vercel employees are like, Open Next is like a disingenuous project. Like it's just like why? Like I don't blame Vercel for not caring about deploying Next.js elsewhere. Totally fine. It's not aligned with their incentives. We even wrote a long thing about how it's dumb to be upset with them about that.
Right.
But then they like, anytime we talk about the difficulty and the complexity of running Next.js outside, they'll reply being like, not accurate. Actually, it's very easy. Well, if it was so fucking easy, then why is there this project with like a bunch of people putting hours into it, right?
Gotcha.
So to me, it's the way they like operate in relation to that project. And you kind of see it in a bunch of places. I feel like with all their marketing, they just create so much confusion that other people have to clarify, that other projects have to clarify, and like month after month there's like another new thing. So I don't like them as like just the way they're positioned and like the way they're operating. I feel like to me it really feels like a net negative. Like we get along so well with literally every single one else in the space, just weirdness with them. So maybe the problem is on us, but like I said, I feel like we get along really well with everyone else. So yeah, that's why whenever I see an opportunity, again, 10% of the time when I see an opportunity,
10% does.
Yeah. Only when it's like really easy.
So with me, it's like I actually don't have a problem with any tech that Vercel offers. Like I actually think, and you would agree with this. Like I truly believe like they have some of the most brilliant engineers.
I don't agree with that, but I think the tech is fine.
Yeah, I think there's actually like a lot of really good, brilliant engineers on the Vercel squad, right? My whole problem is not even like a technological perspective. It's more like the marketing perspective, and it's that like the comparison to Apple, right? Like I think Vercel is trying to be like that the Apple of web development, right? And like that's fine. Like I get it. Like it's cool. I understand, like, having that ecosystem where, like, you're in the Apple ecosystem. There's so many great things that happen versus, like, if you're in the Vercel ecosystem, you can use all the things Vercel has to offer for all your deployment needs, right? And I think that's, like, I have no problem with that. But it's, like, it's almost a bit of, like, a snobby-ish, like, way to present it, right? It's, like, we are so, like, polished, poised. Our things are so great, like, all of this. I'm just like, man, like, I don't know. Like, I think you guys are cool, but like, I don't think you are necessarily like groundbreaking in a lot of the things you do. And I don't want to turn this into like I hated Vercel Fest. Like, I actually, again, most of the time when I dunk on Vercel, which is very limited, it's like, take it with a pinch of salt, right? Like, I don't have a problem with them. It's just like, I don't like that like snobby-ish attitude that I think maybe it's a me problem that comes off with a lot of their posts, a lot of their marketing tactics, but that's just my problem with Vercel, to be honest.
Yeah, and I think I feel that too. I feel like they operate like they like went up to the mountain and stole fire from God and they're bringing it to the people. Like it's like you're fucking deploying websites, like you can't do the Apple thing. Like Apple is so much bigger and more influential. Like it works for them. I don't think it particularly works in this domain.
Yeah.
And again, as someone in this space that's responsible for like helping people do stuff and helping clarify things and helping people understand things, we spend a lot of time just like clearing up confusion. Like their latest thing is PPR this, PPR that, like futures PPR. We're betting everything on PPR. And like nobody understands it. Like literally nobody understands it. People, like other frameworks are being asked to like support PPR, and you ask them people what they mean, and like they don't really get it. It's such a minor, small optimization. That is, I mean, to be fair, maybe minor small optimization is not the right phrase, but it's like the result of a lot of history and baggage of Next.js and Vercel specifically, not some like objective technological truth. It's like it's very like nuanced and complicated there.
Right.
But like they drop it into the space, and like people just start parroting it and expecting it and not really understanding it. And the burden gets put on other people to spend time clarifying that. That's why like Ryan Florence is 100% insane now, because I feel like he deals with that all the time, being like, when's Remix going to get this? Well, that doesn't really make sense for Remix because X, Y, and Z. And it just becomes this, it's exhausting. And to me, honestly, it's boring. I think front end stuff is like interesting. I do a lot of crazy front end stuff, but like, should it be 90% of our conversation? I don't think so.
Right.
Especially not the flavor of front end stuff that Vercel talks about, which is like very aligned with like e-commerce marketing type websites, which is not what I work on at all.
Yeah, and I also think like on kind of Vercel's side, like I think they do get overly dunked on. Like I think with Vercel, because they have positioned themselves to be like what you said, like they climbed the mountain to discover God. Like anytime they do like a small hiccup or small slip, like people are gonna
it's over the top.
People are gonna jump on that more than normal, and it's because of that positioning, right? So I do feel a little like kind of sorry sometimes, like, oh, like we made like a mistake, and it's like, I don't think that's a big deal. Like, shit happens, like, you could whatever, but they just get like this wave of hate. So I try to trend carefully. I try to just like not even talk about Vercel too much, but I thought like this would be a golden opportunity with you here. So it's easier to pile on the cocky person. Exactly.
That actually bothers me so much. I hate nothing more when someone's on my side but making a dumb argument. And this happens with Vercel all the time. Like they'll do stuff that's like not even a big deal, and people will just like shit on them. And I'm like, shut the fuck up. Just like wait, make the actual points. Like don't make this like dumbass point that's meaningless.
Yeah.
So I get like more annoyed at that than I do at any of like the direct things. So it is like, people jump on them a little too much for the smallest things.
For sure. But kind of going away from the Vercel topic, there's some like, so is Ion actually real? Like, bro, like I know a snippet, a fingernail of what's going behind the scenes sometimes. If I'm adding a convo and it slips here and there. I thought Ion was a joke. Like when you guys made that trend, you guys built a deployment stack. Remember you and Warren? What was it like? Veresa?
Oh, Valera.
Like Valera. Yeah, bro. So I thought this was like a Valera derivative. But
okay. So I'm gonna drop some secrets on here. So I never followed through with the Valera joke because I got distracted. So Valera is fake, but if you look at the letters and rearrange them, they spell Laravel. I was gonna fork Laravel and like replace all the letters to like say Valera, and then I was gonna publish it being like, it's here. But I never followed through with it. So, but no, Ion is real.
Ion is real. Ion is actually something that the like your team is working on actively, and
we just released it last week.
Yeah, which I was like, what the fuck? Like, how far is this joke gonna go? Because you made a post, you linked to an actual like repo that had like actual code written that was doing something. Like, bro, like how much time do these guys have for this joke that like didn't really pick up too much steam? Like,
Dude, man, I forgot what movie it was. I think it was 22 Jump Street, where Channing Tatum's like, he's really good at dancing, but it's only because he was started to like learn dancing to make fun of people that were into dancing, but then just got really good at it anyway. Yeah, it was like that. No, Ion was always real.
okay.
I don't know why people thought it was fake. I joked about it being fake because at some point I was like, we're talking so much about this thing and we're not releasing it yet. Like it's probably sounds fake, but I guess it did seem fake to people.
Wait, didn't you guys first release it as like an emoji? Like, didn't you like you guys?
Yeah, the little circle. Like
Yeah.
Jay literally went through the whole like UTF-8 collection and was like, let me just find something that looks good, and he found it, and then we just started using it everywhere. And then I like stopped using it because it's like too hard to like type. I like copy paste it from somewhere else. So I'm just lazy now. But yeah,
Bro, that killed
it's a
me.
brilliant move. Look, if your logo is an emoji, then people can post it everywhere. That's awesome. That's like a great hack. That's why I think the X logo is brilliant.
Oh my god, it's also like the Mojo extension could be like that fire emoji, and like that's an actual
Oh, yeah.
thing. You can actually write
Yeah.
like Mojo code in like the emoji extension. And I was like, bro, this is
Yeah.
a trend that I don't even know where it's gonna lead to. Like these guys are just saying like we just built symbol like UTF symbol. I'm like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
That was actually awesome.
Yeah.
There was a few questions from chat that I think we could kind of circle back maybe, unless you want to talk about something else. Yeah, there it is. There's that emoji, that circle.
There it is. That's just the Ion right there.
Yeah, that's it, man. You guys should trademark that. What do you think about Pulumi? Like, you know, I think you,
Yeah.
Jay, and Frank, you know, you obviously made that announcement. It caught a lot of attention, myself included. What are your thoughts? You know, I know you saw a lot of good teams with the Pulumi team, like how they were like very
Yeah.
responsive, they're willing to work with you, very different than your previous experience, right? But like from a not from a business perspective, and not even from like
Technology,
a customer,
yeah.
from a technology. What do you think about it?
Yeah. So what's interesting is, so prior to all this, I was always a Terraform person. I built everything in Terraform.
Okay.
I would say they like invented the IAC pattern in like a meaningful way. It's kind of where everyone first learned about infrastructure as code. And I knew and I saw Pulumi around, and I like never really got it. And I was like, okay, I see they're trying to do the code thing, but something about like the vibe made me not want to go try it out. It's really hard to articulate, but it just
Okay.
felt like a very commercial product. And,
Interesting.
you know, I didn't think too much of it. So when we were contemplating moving off of CDK, we're like, okay, our options are we build something on top of Terraform because we want access to the larger ecosystem. But then the Pulumi CEO replied to some of my tweets being like, oh, like, you know, we love what you're doing. Like, we should definitely chat about, you know, how we can work together.
Yep.
So when I talked to them, and I didn't realize this, but one of the co-founders of TypeScript is a founder of Pulumi.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, that's interesting. Then I had a good chat with them. They seemed really great, and they seemed like super supportive and excited. So I'm like, I got to like at least properly evaluate Pulumi before I decide what we're going to do.
Yep.
So I went and I sat down and I used it, and I was like, oh, holy shit, this is like genius engineering. I don't think it's really hard to articulate it to the average person, but when we were building on top of CDK, just because we saw like thousands of deployments, all kinds of setups, there were like certain fundamental problems that we saw come up over and over and over and over and over. And we had some ideas on solving some of those, but then the rest of them seemed like impossible or just like realities of the problem. Then when we started looking into Pulumi, they had like such an elegant system that solved like everything on our list. It gave us a way to solve literally every single problem that we like wrote down. Of like, these are the top, like, you know, 100 things that ST users run into. It gave us a path for every single thing because it's so beautifully designed and it's extremely simple. Their solution was really simple as well.
That seems so. I want to call you out. That seems almost not real. Like,
Yeah, I know.
it's super. Yeah, like, you know what I mean. Like, is that really the truth, or like, you know, are you kind of forcing that narrative? Because what is the likelihood of you experiencing these unique problems that are unique to SST users, and you go explore Pulumi that you haven't taken seriously before, and then be like, holy shit, I wrote down 10 things, Pulumi addresses all 10 of them. Like, what, like, how real was that? How real is that?
Yeah, so I would say half of it just comes from more direct access than CDK gave us. So I think we would have solved these problems whether we use Pulumi or Terraform.
Okay.
But with any infrastructure as code system, the underlying thing that every problem that you have, any high level problem you have, stems down to like order of deployment. Like when you have a thing that needs to be deployed, but another thing depends on it, and that thing also depends on the first thing. Expressing that in code is like very, very complicated, and there can be a lot of confusion around it. So there's like every infrastructure as code tool has a way to do dependencies, but Pulumi's version of doing it, even though they were in TypeScript and they're in a bunch of languages, like they don't use promises. They use something that's a lot more similar to a monad, which is usually for functional programming idiots, but it actually makes a lot of sense here. Because like it's very great at expressing like state and derived state and like, you know, computations from that. Who's
Bro,
mad?
I'm sorry. I'm just laughing because like before you're like, yeah, I don't care what people use. I don't care, right? Like I like do whatever you want. I'm not gonna tweet about it. I don't care what you do. But then you're like, yeah, functional programming idiot. So like it's just so funny to
Well, hang on. I am a functional programming idiot. Like I've spent years doing full-time FP and like doing all that stuff, but I recognize that I'm an idiot for being into that. So yeah, I always make fun of myself first.
Of course.
Yeah. So for whatever reason, nobody had thought to apply this solution to infrastructure as code before, and it like so elegantly solves so many things. And initially it took a while for us to wrap our brain around it because it's a different way of thinking. But once we did, we realized like we could solve so many things.
I see.
The reality is that I think most infrastructure as code tools try to like take your input and instantly synthesize a plan of things that they're going to do and then execute the plan.
Right.
The problem is you often have steps in the plan that are dependent on the previous step, where you don't know what the step is going to be until the deployment actually happens. And Pulumi supports that fundamental problem. So it's a very low level thing that they solved. And that bubbles up into like, you know, all these high level practical problems of like, you know, like there's just all these like weird things where like, it's again, going back to Next.js statically builds as much code as possible. So if you have a page that like pulls from your database and like renders something, but it's not dynamic, it tries to do that at build time, which means your database has to be deployed before your Next.js build even happens. Situations like that, like you really need to be able to control the order of things. And Pulumi gives us a way to do that. And we were able to kind of, you know, go crazy with it.
Okay, so I see. So it's not like they had like these direct, it's not like you had a list of 10 problems and Pulumi's like, here's 10 solutions. It's more like Pulumi, the way Pulumi's engineered gives you like a vessel to address those problems very elegantly.
Yep. And that's what makes it so impressive, right? They weren't intending to set out to solve our problems, but their design is so good that it's scaled to those.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, so it's funny, the Alt F4 stream in chat, Black Glasses actually talked to me about Pulumi. Like he was the very first person I ever knew used Pulumi, and this was like years ago. And I was like, oh, this for some reason I just didn't like the name. I was like, I don't know, like
the name. Okay, it's stuff like that. It's like little things like that actually prevent people from trying out your thing. Yeah, it's true. It really is a thing.
Yeah, but yeah, it just, you know, and like Black Glasses is like one of like so deep in DevOps. Like, it just looks that like individuals who are in the space, you know, you, Glasses, AJ, whoever, when there's like that one recommendation from one good engineer and it's like echoed by another good engineer who came maybe later, it just validates what that team has built. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
exactly. Yeah, and I think people are mentioning. I think Alta4 is mentioning it's more limited when we talk about reproducible steps. So there is a trade-off. Like with Terraform, you can get like a full plan of exactly what's going to happen, which means you can't do anything dynamic. With Pulumi, you can do stuff that's dynamic, but like you can't get that perfect plan ahead of time. But for our use cases, it's like a good trade-off to make.
So you said so I, two questions. One is, how long behind the scenes did you, Jay, and Frank already know you're gonna be going away of CDK? Like, how long did that discussion happen? How long did someone first bring it up? Was like, yo, I have this problem, I'm sick of it. Like, I fucking hate this. We need to seriously consider like moving off. And then there's a meeting, and then that escalated to another meeting. You know, how long did that happen behind the scenes until you and your founders were like, yeah, we are doing this full steam ahead?
Yeah, it's just one of those things where this is how it goes with every company. Like you have an inkling that you need to do something different. Like this, and this has been years now, right? Maybe 2 years. We felt like we've just been discovering design problem after design problem in CDK.
Okay.
And it just builds up over time because you're like, we should move, but now's not the right time. We should move, but now's not the right time. And eventually there's a threshold of like, everyone is like, fuck this, like we have to do it now. And that usually happens when you really internalize that if we don't do it and somebody else does, we're done. Like we're cooked. Like there's no chance, there's no reason for us to exist if somebody puts this together. And once that fear gets in your head, like nothing else matters.
Right.
And once you do it, then you feel like an idiot because you're like, we wasted all this time. Like we should have done this a year ago. Like there was no reason we couldn't have made this decision a while back. And that's what sucks about, that's the hardest part about building something from zero. It's very easy when you have 0 users because it's not working, you're going to try something else. It's not working, you're going to try something else. Once you get some amount of traction, it's so easy to get trapped. Like that traction might have a low ceiling, but you're so unwilling to give that up and start over. And that just makes it harder to make the right decision because oftentimes you do have to start over. Oftentimes you do have to make these big bets. And we hit a certain point where we're like, we've never really made a big bet like this before. We've never done anything crazy. And yeah, it just kind of came together where we're like, we have to do this to fix these problems. There's nowhere else we can go.
I mean, when you made the announcement, again, for my scope, it's like I knew the amount of work that would be required to do this. And I'm sure you guys probably had like a very good path to do it, like the least amount of effort. But I know it's still an investment, regardless of the magnitude of that investment. And also, like one thing that makes that decision so much harder, like you said, like going back to, let's say me, I have like 600 daily users, right? Nothing like that's very, and some of them are just like lingerers or they just have it open in the background. Like, but SST, there's 20,000 stars on it on the GitHub repo. There's people using it to thousands of a magnitude of thousands, right? So like making a decision like that will have direct impact to your users and your customers. That's like not something you just like wake up, pop a Zen, guys, like Jay didn't wake up after doing like yoga. He's like, guys, fucking put the bongs away. I got something for us for the next couple of months. It's like you sit on that. You let that waft in the air for a little bit until you're like, this is what we're going to do.
Yeah, it's one of these things where you like it like grows in the back of your head, and then one day you realize it's been growing in everyone's head. Yep. And they're just like, oh shit, like we're all thinking the same thing. Yep. But yeah, it is tough, and like it's less so the work. Like we're like it's fine. Like it was a concentrated effort, but like we're out of it, and it's fine. But it's like the uncertainty of like this could, and we still don't know. This could be a flop. It could never do better than our previous version of SST. It's totally possible. So yeah, you just never know, and you have limited time and runway, so yeah, it's hard to make those bets.
Yeah I know people always dunk on people like, oh, you have no users, but it's almost like having no users at sometimes is a blessing.
It's better than having some users for a bad idea.
Yeah, thank you, that was very well put. So yeah, that's I mean, there's nothing I can add. I mean, Finn, I don't know how to end that sentence or that thought. So stop talking. Okay, fuck. Every time I have I write these questions down. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna ask him next. But then like as we go through this conversation, I'm like, okay, I have another question. So I don't know what I'm doing. This is the first episode of my new podcast called Melk and Cookies. So
just go through.
Yeah. I guess kind of going through like the list here. You brought up something really cool, and like I want to kind of tell you my perspective on this because it's happened to me recently. It's like the social media presence, right? Because you got approached by the CEO of Pulumi, and it's like, hey, like I'm looking at what you're saying, and like we've had conversation with other people, other teams, whatever. Like we should have a conversation, and this actually happened to me recently. So I use a split keyboard, I use a Moonlander, and quote unquote, people are like, okay, the Melky supports the Moonlander. He's like the Moonlander guy or one of the Moonlander guys. Like, cool. Like, it's a vouch. Cool. And I made a video about it. It did, decently low reception. And then I got approached by like other split keyboard companies. And they're like, hey, like we watched your video, and even the things you said about Moonlander, like the negative things, like we kind of like our product addressed that. Like we've had people to say the same thing. Would you be interested in maybe exploring or having a conversation about trying out our product and see if it fits that gap you have? And so the question and where it's snowballing is like, how important is having a social media presence, because like, you know, I don't know, first of all, I don't know how you tweet so much, bro. Like I actually, you have, where is it you have 15?
It's increasing too. I've been tweeting like crazy this past week. I have like 10 a day.
SST team here, ladies and gentlemen. 15.9 thousand posts. I have 8,877. And like I can't even like and I'm trying to post more, bro. I'm like actively like, okay, I gotta bring these numbers up. And like I'm trying. And like I can't hold a candle. So like how important is having a social media presence, to have these connections, to have people see where you write and not just like hate on you or like be haters, but like have valuable conversations, and in your case, be the backbone of why you chose to migrate to Pulumi.
Yeah, I mean it's wild. Like so many things have happened just from like random, like people crossing paths on Twitter or something. Like this Pulumi thing's one. We're doing a crazy amount of close work with Cloudflare now. That also started with like an initial Twitter DM from a VP there. It's yeah, so it's like, I think for us, like, you know, you want to be around your field and your users and like the industry you're trying to serve. It's been so enriching for me. I think for me, that's like, you know, I have so many posts. I've always wanted to write. Like I want to be someone that writes, but I don't want to write blog posts. Okay. So for me, when I first started with Twitter, it was always like, okay, let me try to figure out how to clarify my thoughts. And the constrained format of Twitter over the years has made me like a lot better writer. Like I know how to like compress ideas into like smaller formats. So I like truly enjoy that. Like I truly enjoy having my thoughts and trying to figure out how to like compress it and make the point perfectly. And sometimes I succeed, sometimes I don't. So I've truly enjoyed that. And through it, I've like connected with so many people. And a lot of business does happen through this process.
Yep. 100%. And like, that's why I always tell, like, people always ask me, or I saw a post recently. It's like someone made a post. I don't know. This was today. It was just like on my scroll. I was like, I don't know, taking a dump or having my connections in. It's like, I don't want to stream because like Primogen streams at this time and then TJ streams at another time. I think they said there's no safe time for me to stream. And like, I really don't like that perspective, because streaming when there's like the most popular creators is still better than not streaming at all. Same way it's like not tweeting is the worst thing than tweeting, right? And I think for me, like being a content creator and having this has opened up so many opportunities for me that my life has drastically changed in the last 4 years, right? And I'm not an entrepreneur. I want to be, but I'm just not there. I probably don't, you know, I'm not the most savviest technological person, but I've had all these opportunities of people like, hey, like we like the way you present these concepts, these ideas. Like, do you want to do something? Like Front End Masters was a good opportunity, right? Like I was making content, I was talking about Go. I had a few people vouch for me, and it happened. And I really just always doubled down on like the value of, you know, passing and doing content, because you never know what door is going to open. And not making content doesn't even build a door to be knocked on for you.
Yeah. I mean, the only career advice I have ever had is like, if you see a door everyone's going through, like don't bother with that one. Try to figure out like a weirder path. Yeah. And making yourself like doing stuff in public really helps, because like when you're sleeping, your posts are still out there. Like people are reading them. They're kind of doing work on your behalf, and you never know how you're going to connect. And like, I've had like so many weird things like that happen. The streaming at the time slot thing is funny, because so I don't stream at all really anymone, but I used to stream like a lot.
I loved your streams, dude. They were so you'd be banging Kendrick Lamar. Like you never figured audio out. Your music was always way louder than your voice. So I go in, it's like the dankest fucking music, and like you're just like slowly whispering something with code in the background. I'm like, this is the vibe. This is a vibe. I don't even know how to explain it.
Yeah, but I used to always stream at the same time as Prime, and it's funny because it's like it's a reverse thing. Like it's actually better to stream at the same time as a big streamer. And the thing I always point to is the ice cream vendors on a beach thing. Have you heard of this theory?
No, I'm not. I don't even know. No.
You don't know about ice cream?
I know a little bit about ice cream. I bought a ton of ice cream, bro. Malona is the best ice cream, but hit me with it.
Yeah, so imagine like a rectangular beach, and there's two ice cream salesmen, and they're like, okay, I'm gonna start at this end of the beach. I'm gonna go on the left end, you go on the right end, and that's fair. And one day the guy on the right moves 1 foot more to the left because he gets a little bit more people.
Okay.
Then the other guy responds by doing the same. You keep playing this forward. Where do they both end up? They both end up right next to each other in the middle of the beach because that's where they both have the most equal access to the people. But it's like the worst result for the consumer because now everyone has to go to the middle of the beach to get ice cream. And this like explains like a bunch of economic phenomena that kind of happens, like a thought experiment. That type of thing happens with streaming too. Like if you are going to stream at the same time as Prime, that's a time where thousands of people are like have the habit of logging onto Twitch. There's a chance that maybe they're not into what Prime's talking about that day and they like explore and look at other stuff. So it's weird that people worry about that stuff. It's like kind of like zero sum a little bit. I think like it doesn't matter, like especially when you're starting from zero, like it doesn't really matter when you stream. And I think people kind of find weird hurdles like that don't really exist.
Yes. And one thing I want to kind of double down on that is so when I first started making, so this is like a year making YouTube content for me, like it may be like one full year of making videos. When I first made videos, I would get like poopy stain views, bro. I would get like 12 views, like 104, and I'm like, what the fuck? Like why are my videos not getting any views? And I had this really toxic, I'm so happy like I was able to break out of it, but it's just like I thought I was gonna be, I was owed more views to my, like I thought my people in my community owed me that view, right? Like no matter what I post, I deserve like 1,000 viewed video. But really, like you kind of boil it down to be like, at the end of the day, if you're not either like driving entertainment or adding value, you could have the most hardcore fan ever, or hardcore supporter, hardcore ports person, like your partner, your life partner, and they still won't even watch it. So and it doesn't matter when you post it. Doesn't matter if Prime posted the exact same video 20 seconds before you. If you're not able to drive one of those two things, from my perspective, like it doesn't matter any other like factor. So you could be streaming when Prime's streaming and he has like 1,000 million views, but there's still that opportunity for you to deliver like entertainment and or knowledge or whatever, and people will find you if it's good enough, right? Like that's kind of like a rule of thumb I've really subscribed to recently. Like just be focused on the quality of the content you deliver, and you will gain the results that you want.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because I think this is what I love about just doing anything in this category. What's great is the market's going to be so honest with you. Like you're never going to get on it more honesty like that, right? Like if we build something that sucks, there's no talking. There's no way we can like think about it or talk about it or bullshit around about it. Like the market is going to tell us whether it's valuable or not. And that feedback is like maybe shocking when you first experience something that honest and that direct and not wrapped in, because everything else in the world is like wrapped in BS, right? But like once you start to appreciate it, it's like, damn, like this is like truth. Like you get really fast access to truth doing this kind of thing.
And a lot of people can break down. Hold on. I got to be really careful with how I filter out my raw thought to what I say right now. And you will know why based on our hidden like background.
I feel like I already know why.
You know, yeah. I think a lot of people take that criticism or not even criticism, but that feedback, and are like, hold on, like you're an asshole, I don't need to improve anything, like blah blah blah, and they kind of like almost victimize themselves versus like taking that feedback and being like, oh shit, like that's a really good piece of feedback. If I incorporate this, like this will put the quality of my content better. And they avoid this like feel bad for me, like, you know what I'm saying? Like and I think a lot of people just aren't thick-skinned enough to take feedback, take it for like a pinch of salt, because it's probably not personal. The person making that comment probably doesn't give a fuck about you. Like literally, people have so many problems every single day that they don't give a shit about you. They don't think about you at all. So if they just give you feedback, if someone's commenting on anything you're making, that's already like huge, right? And so if you take whatever they say as just feedback, even if it's pointing like the most nastiest thing, worded in the most nastiest thing, but you extract like the nucleus of their point, it can only make you better. If you just be like, oh cool, like yeah, my audio was dog shit, or yeah, my fonts are unlegible, or like this video just doesn't make sense, I didn't actually deliver anything, let me actually improve that. Let me put that in the back of my mind, so when I make my next like nth+1 video, they're gonna be that much better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's funny with everything that people do. It's like you got to figure out your own psychology first before you go. Not first, but I think, you know, especially with being like in startups for so long and being at so many companies, like so many of the problems that came up were just people's own issues projected and manifested at work, or like manifested and making content, or manifested whatever. And like, and myself too, right? Like I am not naturally good at taking feedback. I probably still am not very good at taking feedback. But I definitely got to a point where I'm like a lot more okay with when something's going wrong. I like don't get as caught up in it as anymore, and I like truly see it as like, this is good information, like it's a good signal, I can kind of readjust. There was a time where, you know, I didn't know, I wasn't very secure in like my life, like am I going to be successful, like am I going to get the things that I want? When I saw something negative happen, it would like, you know, hit me a lot harder. As I've like matured and like figured out my own psychology, become more secure, I can get that stimulus and like, you know, ingest it in a proper way. So yeah, it's like I couldn't really be good at work until I figured out my own shit. And I think 100%. That's like a thing that shows up a lot. Yeah.
And I think one more thing on like this topic, it's like, I think you, Dax, I think you and I and like other people, like we also have this humor, like where I can like almost talk shit to you, like to your face publicly, and you will know I'm like joking. Right. And it's like, because of this heart, like, because you know me, you're probably like, you have thick enough skin. They're like, oh, you're just like fucking Melk, he's just like being an idiot, whatever. And same way that I do. And like, I think that has helped me build like very good relationships with certain people who resonate with that. Right. Like you, Glasses, like I go into the Glasses stream and I just say some nonsense. Like, that's just like a muscle that I'm like, I'm just gonna say whatever I can find on the screen at the time. I'm just gonna like make fun of it. Like no logic, no thinking. I just gotta say some shit and like bounce out of my way, right? And so, and I think, I contribute nothing because it's a nothing comment, but it's just like how I like express like, you know, I don't know, the relationship. So I think that's helped me build these strong relationships with people like yourself, like all these other streamers or content creators, or even like, you know, company owners where I know like, okay, there's like a level of like joking, joshing, chirping that goes both ways, and it just like makes the relationship that much stronger moving forward. So
and that's definitely how I've always operated that way with all my friends, like with my coworkers. Like you see how like me, Frank, and Jay are always roasting each other. Like my friends, like my friends can do anything. Anytime they do anything new, it just means that we're gonna make fun of. Like my friend got new glasses. We're just kind of just roasting the shit out of his glasses, and we did it so much that he went out and spent $1,600 on 2 new pairs. Like that's like, you know, that's just how we operate and how like, you know, I do that with people I'm close with. I don't do that with people that I'm not close with.
Or you know, people who can't take it. Like me and Jay with your podcast with Adam, right? Like Tomorrow FM. I don't think I've ever spoken to Jay in my life, but because I
don't even know how that happened,
dude. Because I knew the relationship you had with Jay and Frank, I'm like, this is the same. Like they're cut from the same cloth. Like I'm about to fucking sneak in here. Message Jay. I'm like, yo, dude. Like I have this funny ass idea. Are you down? I actually didn't even ask him if he's down. I actually don't even ask him for permission. I'm like, yo, dude. Like I'm gonna do this. Do you have like a headshot picture? And like it was like the first comment, like our interaction, and I just did it. I'm like, yo, we're doing yesterday.fm, and like we had this whole backstory, like we have like the lore of it, like it's dope.
Yeah, that was really funny. I couldn't believe it. Just seemed so high effort to me. Like it was so well done. I'm not saying it was like crazy effort, but like higher effort than the average joke.
For sure. I wanted to deliver on that because I think and now it's like a running gag. Whenever you guys like deploy something or like make an announcement, I tag Jay, he tags me, and then we just retweet it, be like, oh, like on this episode of Yesterday FM, and we just copy and paste exactly what you guys say, and that's it.
Dude, this is that thing we were just talking about earlier where eventually you're just gonna have a podcast with him, like for real, but like it's a joke, but like not anymore.
I gotta get Jay on a yesterday.fm episode, man. We're lacking right now. There's a couple of things. All right, dude, that's it. I got no other questions. That's it. I got something to do in half an hour, but I think maybe this is a good time to end it. What do you think?
Yeah, sounds good. I'm sweaty.
Awesome.
I gotta turn my AC.
Yeah, your ass is probably, you've been sitting on that chair for probably a minute. Is there like,
Yeah.
is that chair like does it have like a mesh setting at the back, or is it like just pure
No,
leather?
okay. Yeah, everyone said like because the other day I posted that leather chair, and everyone was like,
Yeah,
"Oh, you're
it's
probably
gross.
like sticky," and like it's
You
not.
are. You
It's
are.
like never been an issue.
It
I
is,
don't know.
dude.
It's not been
You're
an issue.
convincing yourself it's not. That's
You're gonna come up. Well, you're gonna see it soon.
Bro, I'm gonna steal it. I'm gonna take that shit back with me, bro.
Dude,
Yeah.
are you like? Do you have a job? You act like someone that's like 1,000% unemployed.
Bro, do
You
see this
fucking work at Fang.
do you see this expensive ass dog? This purebred motherfucking dog with me, dude. He's
Dude,
expensive as
those
hell.
things are so expensive.
So expensive,
Yeah.
man. This guy does nothing all day. Just makes more of a mess or makes me spend my money more. Like that's his MO. He wakes up, he's like, all right, how can I ruin my dad's sleep? And then how can I like fuck up something and then break something he has to pay for? Like that's his like
Yeah.
Jira board right there, dude.
Yeah, it's funny because when you're getting a dog, you just think about the cost of purchasing the dog, and then
Yeah.
it's like that is a tiny amount compared to
dude.
the shoes and everything else that gets destroyed.
God, bro. Oh my dude, did I tell you this guy ripped my passport? I don't have a passport right now. Yeah, dude. So I go to the bank and I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna bring all my documents because I'm like doing this fucking thing. And I come back, I put my backpack on the ground and I'm just like chilling in my office. And like my dog Honeydew, he's like gone, but he's always beside me. And he always does something when he's doing something bad. He's like doing his own thing. So I'm like, all right, I haven't seen this man for a bit. Like, let me go check up on this guy. I go into the bedroom where he does. That's like his lair, his lab of nefariousness. And bro, I see all my documents, like my like social security number, all of this shit spread everywhere. And I'm like, I'm like gasping. And I just see my passport in this guy's mouth. And based on my gasp, he knew he fucked up. Like, like dogs have that sense, like, oh God.
Yeah.
Like I did something bad. So I'm just like, Honeydew. And my passport is just to shits. So I have to go through this whole process of going back to like the government of Canada, like proving why I'm here.
No.
It's a nightmare.
Yeah, that sucks.
Little fucking asshole.
Yeah,
I know,
that's
man.
like my nightmare.
Yeah, little
Like today I like went out to get water and I look out my window and Zuko's just like sunbathing in the sun, and I'm just like, he like doesn't know what like a bill is. He doesn't know like
yeah,
there's like rent that has to be paid. There's like no work. He just every single day just lives totally in the moment and just does whatever the fuck he wants.
yeah.
It's
Dude,
crazy.
What do you mean you went
What
out
a
to
life.
get water? Like you get your water from like a well? What are you
No,
talking?
I went to my kitchen.
Oh, okay. I was like-
Kitchen. No, I'm not Prime.
I'm like,
I'm
bro,
pretty sure
what,
Prime has to go to a well.
what are you talking about? What do you mean? You have like a water source, like a river? Like, yeah. For those who don't know, I'm going to React Miami. It's in April, and I'm actually crashing at Dax's place. So if you guys are going to React Miami, come say what up. You'll probably see us somewhere there.
Yeah.
Cool.
And you can verify that my chair is not sweaty. So.
Dude, I'm gonna sniff your chair. So okay, we're gonna go ahead and do a raid. We're gonna go ahead and raid Nate. But dude, Dax, seriously, thank you for hopping on the stream. This is something I wanted to do for a while. I think this is like a really, really good stream. Just getting to pick your brain a little bit, understanding like behind the scenes things of what you and the team at SST are doing. So appreciate it, bro.
Yeah. It was good being on. See ya.
That's how you end it. Good being on. See ya.
I got distracted by chat.
Okay. All right. Well, chat.
It was great. I had so much fun. Melky's the best.
There you go.